Hi, I'm Dr. Lauryn Brunslick, and this is Dr. Jessica Richards, and we are both doctors at Blue Hills Chiropractic in Rice Lake and Cumberland, Wisconsin. We are super excited that you're joining us for this short presentation. The goal is to empower you, whether you are struggling with chronic congestion or illness, or it's a child of yours or someone you know or love. We want to give you good answers on why it's happening and what you can do about it. If you are watching this live, remember that you can ask questions in the chat and one of us will be there to help answer those questions. If you're not watching this live, then feel free to reach out to our clinic via phone or send us a text message to our phone number or reach us on Facebook and we will get any question you may have answered.
And make sure you stay until the end for a special promotion.
All right, enjoy. Okay, let's kick this off. So reminder that the whole goal of this is to be brief but empowering. We want you to walk away with answers and action steps. So let's start with, are you even in the right place? Like everybody is super busy nowadays and we don't want you wasting your time. So this webinar is really designed for those that are looking for tools to help themselves or their child or someone they love gain a stronger immune system. It's for those looking to help themselves and their kids have less sick days, keep them in, no parent loves that phone call from daycare that they need to leave work and come pick up their kiddo because they're running a fever. Kids, especially as they get older and they're missing days in school, they're feeling behind. That not only adds to their immune system issues, but also adds to their mental health when they start feeling behind. Most jobs only have a certain amount of PTO. And so we want to keep you and your kids healthy, of course, but also in school and at work. This is also for those that are willing to rethink what we know and understand about the immune system. What I mean there is those that are willing to look for something other than I wait until I get sick and then I go and get a medication and I just do that on repeat. If you're someone who's like, no, this is totally working for me, I think this is a great system, you will still learn something today and you should still hang out. But we really want to push the envelope on the thinking of is that the only option that you have for yourself or your kiddo? And this is especially for those that are sick of being sick and are ready to have a winter that isn't just October through March of congestion, antibiotics, virus, fever, over and over and over. So if you've been paying attention, things are getting worse. So Blue Hills Chiropractic has been an established business in Barron County for more than a decade. And in my personal experience, I can firsthand tell you that, yes, allergies used to be small flare-ups. Now we have chronic allergies. People it doesn't matter if it's the middle of summer or the middle of winter, they're always congested. The way that we go about treating things tends to be a little more repeated antibiotics versus questioning, is that even getting anywhere? And we're just seeing more sick days. It really doesn't take much Googling and you will get confirmed that we are becoming sicker. Adults are becoming sicker and children are becoming sicker. The stats out there on how many kids will be on more than 10 rounds of antibiotics by the time they enter kindergartner, but before they become a kindergartner is astronomical. And if we take kind of the trajectory of the last 10 years and go forward, so it's not just are things really bad now? Yes. Are we expecting them to get better? I would say if we keep doing the same thing, the answer would be no. So many people, we already talked about who this webinar is for, but across the board, people listening are going to be in a couple different categories. So category A is kind of this prevention. Maybe you aren't sick very often, but you're pregnant and you want to do everything you can to make sure that your kiddo doesn't get sick all the time. But either way, you're in the prevention model. That is fantastic. You are going to learn something today. Maybe you're always sick. We've talked a little bit about that chronic congestion, chronic fever is just that cycle. Or maybe your child is missing a lot of school, or you are missing a lot of work. Things are starting to get like, okay, this is getting bad. We need to do something about this. We can't keep missing school. So like you're kind of maybe questioning at this stage, like, is this normal? And then the fourth category is for those that it's gone past you wondering if this is normal to your primary care physician going, this isn't normal and we need to do something about it. So typically the we need to do something about it is surgical, for usually putting tubes in, removing the adenoids or tonsils. A lot of times kids with chronic congestion have a lot of swollen adenoids and tonsils. And although those surgeries can be very helpful at preventing future ear infections or things like that, it really doesn't get to the root of why did that get there? Why did your child or yourself get there in the first place? I said that I've been in practice for over a decade. It used to be that we only saw kiddos around age 1.5 to 2.5 getting these surgeries. Now I'm seeing kids in kindergarten get it, in second grade. I'm having adults have these surgeries. And we go like, okay, how did you make it 34 years in life and your tonsils and adenoids and ear canal were all working well and now they're not? Like, what happened? What is going on that your immune system was doing okay, but now can't keep up? So if you're in this category where surgery is imminent, I can tell you that most people, if you ask your primary care physician, can we make some changes and delay this 2 more months? The big thing that they're worried about is just staying on the same hamster wheel. And they'll also talk about like developmental in like speech. If you keep like a lot of times with chronic swelling and ear infection issues, they worry about a kiddo's speech. So asking like, can we delay 2 more months to make some changes? Most of the time they're going to say yes. Most of the time they're going to say, yeah. But in their mind, they don't understand that there's more that you can try than they've already done. And we'll kind of talk about that in a future slide. So, like I said, Blue Hills Chiropractic has been in Barron County for well over a decade, and we are not your average chiropractor. I'll tell patients that if you were to go to a bigger city, you would experience a lot of chiropractors that run their clinics the way we do, where the conversation is around overall health, overall aging, adaptability, just improving someone's quality of life. And immune system falls under that. So we are the experts in our area on non-pharmaceutical approaches to childhood immune system growth and development. We do this a lot. Our clinic sees about 40% pediatrics, and that ends up being hundreds and hundreds of kiddos each week. So not to brag, but to let you know, like as experts, we see more kids in an afternoon shift than the average chiropractor will see in an entire month. So what that means is we're just very familiar with working with children, making them feel comfortable. We know that a kiddo who's experienced a lot of illness has probably spent a lot of not ideal time in a doctor's office. Like it's not fun. If you're at the doctor's office when you're sick, it's not because things are like awesome and fun. So we know how to approach kiddos to make them feel very comfortable and more importantly, get those results that you're coming for. Okay, so this is what I was talking about that we would talk about a little later. So outside in versus inside out. So our normal model in America, when it comes to getting sick or immune system, tends to be a combination of luck and avoidance. Even if we look at the entire pandemic that we experienced for a couple of years, that was all relying, a lot of that, the rules and restrictions that we were going through and our kids were going through was just avoiding germs or situations altogether. And so if we look at that and we go, okay, is this just luck though? If we took 100 people in a room and then we sent someone through that had the flu and they just breathed all over every single person in that room, would all 100 of them get the flu? Now, the answer is no, they wouldn't. And I don't know what percentage would or not, because I don't know, but some of them would not. So what's up with that? If it's just purely an avoidance thing, where if you avoid it, you don't get sick. No, because you can't avoid germs. You can't, this is what we've learned in the last few years of you can't. There's going to be kids in daycare that are sick. There's going to be kids in your kid's classroom that are sick. There's your coworkers, at the grocery store. You're going to experience and encounter these germs and bacteria and viruses. So the ones that are air quote lucky, what's going on with them? Is it actually luck? So what we would say as experts of the nervous system and how the body functions is that it's more of an inside out approach for those people, meaning that their nervous system, they've got something in them that when they breathed in germs, they didn't get sick. Okay. And we're going to talk about that. That's kind of a lot about what do those lucky people have? And this is where we want to ask, are you willing to question that maybe the outside in of we wait, and when we get sick, we go and we seek pharmaceuticals and we put them in, and that's just the process that we do. Are you willing to question that actually there could be these other people who aren't just relying on luck and are focusing on making sure their insides are nice and strong, that, when we talk about that strong immune system. So when they are exposed, they actually don't get sick, or they don't get as sick. And then finally, before I turn it over to Dr. Jessica, is it just a strong immune system? And honestly, I would say that it doesn't come just to strength. It's also adaptability. You can have a very strong, a strong immune system is along, this idea that when it has seen something before, it is prepared. It has done the reps in the gym, and it's I know you're not getting past. So this may be our common flu or the common cold. But where is adaptability? Adaptability is when we see a new virus entering our community, when something, because viruses are extremely adaptable. They will always win the adaptability. They are constantly figuring out ways to change their DNA so they can keep living and thriving and finding new hosts. But can you improve your adaptability so even when your strong immune system sees something new, it may not have armies already prepared to fight that? But guess what? You don't just have a strong immune system. You have an adaptable nervous system that is able to go, okay, I wasn't prepared for this right now, but give me a sec and I can do this really quick. I can figure this out.
With that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So now we're looking a little bit about how does the immune system function? What is it supposed to do? And this is going to be super brief. We could get so far into the nitty-gritty and talk about all the little players, but overall, how does the nervous system function? The first thing it's going to do is protect against infection, which means it has to recognize it. That's what Dr. Lauryn was just talking about. It really has to decide, is this a problem? I have to know, what I need to do with this. I have to recognize if I've seen it before or figure out, what I'm going to do with it if it's new. The second one is actually defending against it. It has to do more than just say that's bad. Oops. We have to actually be able to do something about those things once we do recognize it. And then the last part, we're going to talk very little about that in this video because it's a little bit different, but your body also has to recognize itself because it can't just think everything's bad, because that's when we end up with an overactive immune system, and we don't want that either. But this is a little bit, that's more of like an autoimmune disease. This is going to be really focused on just like your immune system and those kicking like the actual sicknesses that we see are usually in winter and spring. Another great, you're going to hear me talk a little bit about having an army as an immune system. And one of my favorite metaphors for that is if the United States needed to protect itself, what we want to do as the United States is we really want to have a strong army here. If we were always reaching out, kind of that outside in approach to Canada to say like, hey, we really need help. Can we borrow your army? Will you guys help us out? Each time we ask Canada to help us and come borrow it, obviously sometimes it would be necessary, but the US doesn't necessarily get stronger when it's developing that way, as opposed to doing the work from the inside and making sure the US has a really great army itself and doesn't always need to go to Canada, even every once in a while if it does. So what tells the immune system what to do? Like, great, we need this great immune system. Who's in charge? Who's running this army? Because you can have the greatest army ever, but if there's no good leader, you're still not going to win like you want to. And the answer to that is the super important part, and that is your nervous system. Your nervous system tells your body exactly what it should be doing and when. When things happen, and we're going to talk about what those stressors are that stress out your body, that increase your cortisol, that really gets your body into a state where it can't focus just on telling your immune system what to do, so it doesn't function as well. So if you are in what we call that fight or flight, your body constantly feels like it's falling, it's running from a tiger, and your body just keeps going, what's next? What's next? What's next? That's when your immune system isn't going to function like it should. Your body doesn't prioritize fighting the virus, bacteria, parasite, whatever it is. It really slows that healing down. It prolongs your healing time and makes you more susceptible to other bugs that are coming in because, again, your body is just so overwhelmed, overdoing it, that it doesn't have those really great resources and that functioning nervous system to tell you, how to coordinate and how to actually win one of these battles. So we're going to talk a little bit more later on of like, how do you get your nervous system in a good space so it's running this army, your immune system well, so you get sick less and fight things better. So your immune system, again, is controlled by your nervous system, and therefore it's more than just this one thing going on. It's really a cycle. And to have an immune system that's working properly, you can't have too much inflammation, you need to be able to heal well, and you need to be able to defend against those bugs, have that immune system. Just so you guys know, again, your body's all connected. When you're looking at the nervous system, you're really looking at your full body and not just, piecing it apart. Your gut is a huge part of your immune system. So if your gut isn't in the right place, a lot of people, it's not quite there. Your immune system is going to suffer from that as well. If you're chronically inflamed, your immune system's not going to focus or not going to function quite as well because your nervous system is locked into dealing with some of those things. So you're just going to be sicker more often, or your kiddo's going to be sicker more often. And, you always talk about the kiddo that gets it the worst. We see this in siblings all the time where one sibling, they get the little bug, they fight it for a few days, and they're up and at it the next day. And then their sibling next to them goes, man, they have it for weeks. They never really fight it. They kind of have a cough all winter because they never get rid of anything 100%. Why is that? It's because their nervous system isn't functioning as well. Their brain and their gut and all of these hormones aren't working as well together, making them unable to fight these things as well as maybe someone else, even if it's a sibling as close as being related to that. So then we are talking about next, how do we build the strong immune system? What can we do? How do we get our nervous system functioning better so that our immune system functions better? And there's really like 3 categories of places that we can talk about in this, and that's emotional, chemical, and physical. So we're going to go through each of these. We're going to talk about stressors, and then we're going to go through little tips and tricks on how to get these in a better place. So we'll start with our physical health. These stressors they're kind of the common sense ones we think about. When kiddos are little, we see them, they take tumbles, they're learning to walk and they take falls. And we're like, man, I wouldn't get up for that. But kids are really adaptable to these things. As they get older, and as we as adults get older, there's things we think about a little bit less. So it's things like sitting too long. If we're sitting, that's stressful on our body. Our bodies weren't made to sit for this long. It's long car rides. It's screen time. Decreasing all of these things can take off some of that physical stressors on your kiddos, making it a little bit easier for their body to adapt. We are coming into winter, and we have a really long season here in Wisconsin that we can't get out every day like we want to because of the weather. So we're going to give you some things like Simon Says are really good for kids, gets that blood moving. We don't necessarily need them to break a sweat. It's just movement throughout the day. That's not, the sitting and the normal things they're doing. There's a really cool blanket fort, and that's why I use the picture because they are sweet. You get to hang out in the blanket fort afterwards, but really creating that gets you moving a little bit more. And then don't rule out things like dance parties. And if it's nice outside, go for a walk. Again, we don't have a very long season, so we do have to take advantage when it's nice enough to get outside. Chemical health. So immediately when people think of this, that's why I kind of have it up here, is they think of that like Halloween candy, the holidays, all of those like sugary weeks where we, lean into a little bit worse of a diet. But those are important to cut out or to minimize. But we're not asking you to not do that ever. What we want you to look at overall is your diet as a whole. Making sure even in those weeks, you're still getting those vegetables in. You're still getting all of those nutrients because the day-to-day is the really important things. And then coming into these big weeks, you don't want to be super strict because you still want them to have a good time, and telling a kiddo they can't have their Halloween candy just isn't an option overall. So we want to make sure that they're getting all of those other nutrients they need and that we are decreasing this as much as is reasonable. Another thing about chemical health I really wanted to mention are supplements, because again, not all kids eat all foods like they should. So if you are getting into maybe a season that is typically we struggle a little bit more with, one of our favorite supplements is N-acetylcysteine. We have it here in a kid's version and an adult version because it is so great at fighting, giving those mucous membranes the nutrients it needs, and making sure all of those pathways, airways stay really clear. Vitamin D is also really important. I've talked about a lot. We don't get outside quite as much as we should or could during some of those colder months. And it's really important that we are staying on top of our vitamin D to give those resources that your immune system needs. And the difference between a supplement and something like a Tylenol is that a supplement is going to be giving your immune system the resources it needs to function well. The Tylenol is going to be doing more of the heavy lifting. So the Tylenol is actually going to be the one being the active thing, as opposed to the supplement, which is just going to give resources to your immune system being more active. And then emotional health. I feel like I had to years ago defend this and say like kids are stressed and they do go through some things, but now it's become so much more common for people to look at it and be like, yeah, my kid does have worries. Like they do stress about math or friends or, all the things that happen day to day that we might not have recognized a few years ago. Bullying is always an easy one to point at, but even if a kiddo isn't being bullied, they still have friend stress. They still have school sports. They're worried about the game on Friday. They're worried about making it to practice. All of those things really can build up in kiddos. And like we said, if they're in that fight or flight response, their body isn't going to function as well. Now, short term, obviously, during the game, you want them nice and amped, but that prolonged stress, that prolonged increase in cortisol is going to have decreased healing time in that immune system. So some of the things that we recommend for that is meditation. Don't get me wrong. I'm not asking you to go send your kid to a corner and think about nothing. We have some really cool moving meditations where it's got deep breathing, where air balloons, those are on our YouTube if you do want to check those out, or you can just Google them. They're really great. Yoga for kids usually tells a story throughout the whole thing. So they stay nice and entertained while moving their body and getting out of that fight or flight. Also, I just like to talk a little bit about downtime because our kiddos are on that go, go, go because they have piano lessons and practice and school and all of these things. So scheduling some downtime can really be good for kiddos' emotional health and well-being as well, just because they don't always get those if we don't schedule them in.
Go.
Okay, so those were really awesome suggestions that you can do. They may not be easy. Some of those are not easy. Like as a parent, I'm not going to say like that telling your child to decide like they have to pick one sport over another during the season is an easy thing. But you have to, go, is what we're doing working? And if you want a different outcome, then sometimes these changes need to happen. So one of the biggest things that we see affecting a child's immune system, even when a parent is adding in vitamin and essential oils and downtime and moving their body, is the addition of chiropractic. It's not uncommon that we'll have a parent who comes and say, like, we've been trying this, this, and this, and we're still getting sick. And we're like, okay, this might be the missing piece because chiropractic is directly improving the nervous system's adaptability and function. So there are a ton of studies actually that exist now that prove that adaptability is what's happening with that nervous system, and that nervous system can then perform at a higher rate. So we see 20% change in brain post-adjustment. This is kind of the like post-adjustment high that kids or parents experiences. Their entire tone actually can take a breath. Within the chiropractic profession, we call it that post-adjustment sigh or yawn, because that tells us that nervous system, that's one of the external signs that you see when the nervous system goes from fight or flight into that rest and digest, where the body's able to focus on prioritizing immune health. We also see asthma, like kids needing their inhalers a lot less. Overall decrease in inflammation. So inflammation sucks. It is like truly the thing that is the root cause of everything from like allergies, sinus infections, ear infections, heart disease, stomach aches, like achy joints. Like inflammation in the body sucks. Anything that you can do to decrease inflammation is great. Now, some things that are really popular right now are like infrared saunas or cold plunging. I don't know about you, but I don't think my child would be willing to go into 40-degree water to decrease inflammation. But the nice thing is we know that chiropractic helps decrease that inflammation. And just also, it just helps balance that immune system function so we can see less colds, allergies, and symptoms.
Here.
Okay, but how do we know? So it's nice if we can be like, oh, yes, studies say this. But like we care about every single individual that shows up to our clinic. We do not put any kid on a rinse and repeat regimen of care that like, this worked for everyone else, so this is going to work for you. In our clinic, we take a very specialized approach. So whether we are doing a nervous system scan on a newborn or a 55-year-old woman, younger, older, everything in between. So we do something called nervous system scans in our clinic. This is one of the 3 different scans that we do. And this is a before and after. So the scans are completely safe. They do not go into the body. So they are not like an x-ray. They are gaining information externally from the body. So that's why they're safe to do on a newborn and children and even on pregnant women. And they're telling us, how is this nervous system functioning? Is it functioning from this place of fight or flight where there's no way we're going to see optimized performance? Or is it functioning from a more idealized state? So on the left-hand side, you're going to see, the one with a lot of colors. So what we're looking for in this scan is clean, clear communication is going to show up as white. Red is severe stress on an area of communication. Now, the way that the body is mapped out is, so the reason that this scan was particularly interesting and almost what we'd say textbook is because there are two main parts of our spine that are most the like power central controller of immune system function. And it is up in the neck area where you see the top red, and then in that middle area towards the bottom where you see the other red. Those are areas of our body, like could not have done a more perfect scan. That's like, yeah, the areas of the immune system are under attack and they are struggling to keep up. So it was not surprising at all that this kiddo was expressing chronic illness. So this next scan on the right, that is a lot more white. That is the after. Now, I don't remember exactly when this scan happened, whether it was 2 months later or 3 months. It's most, like we said, every kiddo gets their specialized care plan depending on how old they are, how many symptoms we're seeing, and how bad is it, right? For some kids, if surgery is imminent and they may need a longer care plan, but if the doctor said, like, I'll give you 6 weeks, we're going to get to work in 6 weeks. Like, we are going to get some result. So this is the post scan where we're seeing that nervous system function at such a higher rate of communication and efficiency, and therefore adaptability. Now, what you can't see on a scan is the outcome of that child. And, ultimately that's where if the scan looks great, but we're not getting results, we wouldn't keep growing as a clinic and getting so many families and kiddos under care. But like the results, are even better because the parents are happy. The grandparents are happy. People just notice like this kiddo is happier and like healthier. What did you do? And a lot of times they're like, well, we did chiropractic. So you have a lot of options for chiropractic in our area. And I will always, always say any chiropractic is better than none, for sure. But some of the things that you do want to take into account is that chiropractor really familiar with treating more than neck and back pain? Are they familiar with measuring the nervous system function? Do they have the tools that they're able to show, like, this is where we're at, these are our goals? So our clinic, we really focus on making sure that it's an environment in which the children feel safe. Feeling safe is one of the most essential pieces to start healing. We train frequently on customer service, and, providing what we call the Disney experience for kids. They get stickers, they get balloons, they get bubbles if they're like, we go above and beyond to make sure that your kid isn't scared for that adjustment, because fear is not going to allow them to fully express what needs to happen in that adjustment. We're also going to do a very thorough discussion on the emotional, physical, and chemical health, past and present of your kiddo. We go back to birth. Well, actually, we go back to pregnancy. We go talk to us about any of the stressors that were happening during pregnancy. You can share as much or as little as you want. But ultimately, we know, again, from science, that when a child is born, their nervous system is 95% imprinted on the stress and environment that the mother was going through. So if mom was under a lot of stress during the time of the pregnancy, we know automatically, even if that birth is ideal, that nervous system is going to come out already a little wired towards fight or flight. So we're going to talk through, when do we get our first round of antibiotics? Maybe you haven't had any antibiotics, but maybe we're on other medications, or maybe we're just, again, like just missing out on a lot of daycare. And then we're going to do those scans on your kids. They take about 7 minutes. We've got widgets and gadgets and toys and a Where's Waldo map. And we do everything we can to keep them entertained and chill so we can get the information that we need without ever forcing anything on them. So after that initial exam, then we're going to do a thorough explanation of your child's scan results. So you'll get to see, like I said, the scan I showed before was only one. There are 2 other tests that we do, and just it is an explanation. I'll tell parents, like, this isn't a sales pitch. Like, my goal is not to give you more chiropractic than your kiddo needs. My goal is for you to understand what's happening with your child. And what you choose to do with it, totally your decision. But I know as a parent, anytime that I've looked back and I've seen behaviors from one of my kids or sleep issues or whatever it is, like, the goal of a parent is you just want your child to not experience any hardship. And you want to know, like, why is, like Dr. Jess said, you can have 2 kids and they are in the exact same environment. They go to the same daycare. They eat the same foods. Why is one experiencing these symptoms and one isn't? The why, I believe, is incredibly important. As a clinic, we know this is what you want. And so even if you don't do anything with chiropractic, understanding the why, we live and breathe for that. So if we're going to lay out a game plan of, like, all right, based on the scans, this is what we would recommend. And we're going to meet you where you're at. We have people who drive an hour and a half to get to our clinic, because pretty much north of Rice Lake, until you get to Duluth, there's not another chiropractor that focuses on this type of thing. And so it's not unusual for us to have people driving from Webster, Siren, north of Trigo, Hayward, to get to our clinics. And so we're going to work with your frequency and your finances to start moving the needle for your kiddo. And we're going to walk through that first adjustment, making sure we know the importance that first adjustment goes really, really well. So some kids in our clinic that have had severe stranger danger, we may do the simplest, gentlest, barely even call it an adjustment type scenario on that first day. And mom and dad might be like, did we even get a good adjustment? I'm like, believe me, by the 4th adjustment, they'll be crawling as long as we play our cards right with this kid and develop their trust. By the 4th adjustment, they're going to be crawling up on that table and excited. And time again, as long as we focus on not just I need to get this child adjusted, but our goal is to create a relationship of trust with that child first, we know then we have so much time in the future that kiddo trusts us with so many things. So thank you so much for showing up and giving us this time to learn. We hope we answered some things. This is a huge topic. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. As a thank you, we would love to give you a special promotion that is going to be a free exam and assessment for your child. So typically that's $85, but you're going to come in, you'll get that nervous system scan, and then you'll get to go over it with the doctor with our recommendations. On top of that, we would also love to give you 50% off one of the supplements that we talked about in the video in our office.
You do not have to get the exam in order to get the discount for the supplement. You just need to call our clinic and say, I watched the video and I'm using promo code KickTheSick. So thank you so much for your time, and we really look forward to meeting you and continuing this journey on enabling you and your child's health.